Left of the box. Inside the shocking police operation targeting pro-Palestinian activists in Toronto, a heavily resourced hate crime unit has engaged in surveillance, night raids, and trumped-up charges against Palestinian Solidarity Movement. This story is kind of, I want to say it's unbelievable, but it's not. A lot of this just, oh, the police are targeting pro-Palestinian protesters, not shocking. At the behest of a billionaire, not shocking. I wish it was. Like, I wish I could be shocked, like, what do you mean the law isn't doled out evenly across the board depending on, your class and who you are and your political leanings? To be that, there's a lot of liberals, I think, like that. Like Canadian liberals, centrists, right of center, Trudeau liberals that actually believe that the law gets, what's the word? When everyone, there's a word in my head specifically that I want for this. When it's across the board, there is a word. There's a word in my head for it. I don't know. I'm not going to stay here all night and try to figure out what that one word is. But there is this very specific word that I'm thinking about when it kind of gets, it's, the words aren't doled out that I'm trying to think, but it is along those lines, and I'm sure somebody in the sandbox might think of it for me. Enforced? Maybe that's it. Enforced evenly, that the laws were enforced evenly across the board depending on who you are. Anyway, very interesting article here. So, well, I'll try to go through this as entertainingly and quickly and insightfully as I can. The banging at the front door started at 5:30 a.m. It was so heavy that on the second floor of the Mississauga, Ontario home of the Isliah family, bed began to shake. For people who might be new to the sandbox, I can't pronounce names. It's a thing. It doesn't matter. I am horrible with names of places and names of people and stuff. So you'll have to forgive when I don't do that right. The Palestinian Canadian family of 5 opened the door in late January to find several Toronto police officers with warrants to arrest their eldest son. We were in shock. Sua told The Breach in an interview, "Did my son hurt someone? Did he kill someone? Those were the thoughts that crossed my mind." Ahmed, a 26-year-old elementary school teacher. Yeah. Elementary. School teacher. Don't go like here. Elementary school teacher was accused of participating in a demonstration that briefly halted traffic on Toronto's Gardiner Expressway in November. That's, to use the word accused of participating in a demonstration, that already just seems a little off for freedom of expression in this country. And it briefly halted traffic on Toronto's Gardiner Expressway. What? Do you know what else halts traffic on the Gardiner Expressway? Traffic. Halts traffic. And apparently this was like for 5 minutes that it halted traffic on the Gardiner Expressway. And I've been on the Gardiner Expressway, and in clear traffic, it'd take me like 5 minutes from end to end, but in bad traffic, it can literally take an hour. Like, it is just like for them to say like, "Oh no, you halted traffic on the Gardiner Expressway." It's like, So are the police going to go after all the people that are stuck in a traffic jam? The protest against Israel's assault on Gaza has lasted for only 5 minutes. After waking up, Ahmed handcuffing him and charging him with mischief, 8 police officers sat the family, still in their pajamas, at the dining room table. While they searched their home, the front door stayed open despite freezing winter weather, and the family's pleas to close it. So just being cruel for the sake of cruel, like to have people it's humiliating being in your pajamas, having people, gawk at you, sit you down, put you like you'd kind of feel like on display, and then to have the front door open with the cold blast air coming in and you don't have a blanket or anything, and the police are just acting like assholes. According to the warrant marked authorized to be executed at night, the items police were looking for included black pants, white Nike running shoes, and a keffiyeh. Black pants. That's very generic. Like most people have black pants. Like to have that so vaguely on a warrant, like a piece of generic clothing, like I could understand if it was like a very specific, there was a phrase on this t-shirt that caught the attention, but generic black pants and white Nike running shoes and a keffiyeh, which a lot of Palestinian supporters have. And it's very, again, it's very, very generic stuff. Our house is full of keffiyehs. We're Palestinian, Sua recalls telling the police. The family, who immigrated to Canada in 2005 from Ramallah, maintains strong connections to their homeland. I have a poster of Palestinian map. I asked them if they wanted that too. I've done the same thing. After the police left with Ahmed's computers, electronics, and clothes, the family discovered his room turned upside down. Drawers had been emptied on the floor. His mattress was thrown off the bed. A vase was broken, and several boxes had been rifled through. It took us back to our lives in the West Bank, Sua said, when Israeli soldiers raided our home. Their family is not alone. Since October 7th, both Palestinian and non-Palestinians involved in common non-violent protests have been targeted in sweeping, heavily resourced police operations that experts say has engaged in extreme overreach. Led by expanded hate crimes unit, because, protesting genocide falls into hate crime, apparently now in this country. Well, it has been ever since October 8th. And operating under the name Project Resolute, the police tactics have included pre-dawn raids, snatching people on the streets, trying to turn arrested individuals into informants, showing up unannounced at university lectures, and capitalizing on years of surveillance activist movements. Police scholars and lawyers say Toronto police have undermined charter-protected rights of protest and expression by misapplying hate crimes, charged with some saying that the aim is strategic incapacitation of a growing Palestinian solidarity movement. Yet in several instances, months after the arrest and showy police press conferences, the cases are falling apart and charges are being withdrawn. Probably because there is no legal reason to be raiding these people's houses in the middle of the night. But in the time it has taken for the Crown to acknowledge that charges lack the prospect of conviction, media headlines have caused significant damage to the livelihoods and reputations of those targeted. Kevin Walby, an associate professor of criminal justice at the University of Winnipeg and expert on police tactics, called it the height of political policing. Yeah, because, you had the Freedom Convoy up in Ottawa for almost a month, terrorizing a city, blocking roads, preventing people from getting to the work, laying on the horns all hours of the day and night. Like, it just egregious overstep. Like, that wasn't a protest, that was an occupation. And the police did nothing. In fact, some of them were encouraging the protesters, saying, oh yeah, I'm with you. And they really did nothing. Here you have a protest that shut down a highway for 5 minutes. And the police raid their home at 4:30 in the morning and arrest people over that. That doesn't seem like equal enforcement of laws going on. Police aren't acting to target everyone consistently. Oh, I think that's the word that I was looking for earlier. Consistent enforcement of the law. Walby said, It's driven by pervasive anti-Palestinian sentiment among government officials, and it undermines the very idea of hate speech law when police apply the charges so selectively to serve political interests. Shane Martinez, a Toronto defense lawyer representing multiple people charged in the protests, said the operation raises questions about anti-Palestinian bias of the Toronto Police Service. We'll get a little bit more into this with another story. The public should be outraged that millions of taxpayer dollars are being used not to combat hate crimes, but to surveil and repress one of the largest mass organizing movements seen in decades, Martinez said. And so this is them shutting down the Gardner Expressway for 5 minutes. Hate crimes unit zones in on Palestine protests. On October 7th, not long after news broke of Hamas cross-border attacks on Israeli civilian and military base, Toronto Police Chief Myron Dimke, I think it is Dimke, I've heard it on the news now a lot, so I'm just going to go with Dimke, posted a message on X. So again, we want consistent enforcement of the law, and here's the Toronto Police Chief. I am closely monitoring the events in Israel with deep concern. The Toronto Police is not aware of any threats to Jewish communities in Toronto. However, we have increased our presence and visibility to ensure safety of our Jewish communities and all residents. No such message of concern would ever be forthcoming for Toronto's Palestinian community, even as Israel launched its bombardment and invasion of Gaza, which to date has killed more than, it's more than that now. It's just official numbers and stuff. I don't even want to hazard to guess, but I can guarantee you it's over 40 to 45,000. But to try to guess the top end of that number, it's horrifying to think of it, for all the bodies that haven't been accounted for that are under the rubble. It was an early sign of a one-sided policing approach. Several days later, Mayor Olivia Chow put forward a motion that would give police central role in keeping Toronto safe from hate. Yeah, everyone had so much hope for Olivia Chow being mayor of Toronto, somebody who's more left-leaning, progressive. None of it. So disappointing what she's done, because she got into office partly on like this idea of less funding for the police, less kowtowing to the police force and all that sort of stuff, and that never materialized. A small meeting followed between the Toronto Police Hate Crime Unit, part of its intelligence service, and Chow's top staff and the deputy mayor. Also in attendance was Councillor James Pasternak, an aggressive defender of Israel who had previously tried to ban a group of Queers Against Israel apartheid from the city's Pride Parade. Because of course, you know, it's not the parade that gets to dictate who's in it. You know, it's not the Pride Parade itself, but it's other people's feelings as to who should be allowed in it. A week later, Chief Dimke and the unit's senior official participated in a major town hall organized by a United Jewish Appeal. Police promised a similar event in the Muslim community, but did not respond to the briefers' questions about whether it ever happened. Probably not. I don't think it happened. Just putting it, no. Meanwhile, several other pieces fell into place that would reinforce one-sided policing. The Toronto Police made a decision to empower the Hate Crimes Unit, giving it leadership of Project Resolute. The unit grew from 6 officers to 32, according to a verbal report Chief Dimke gave Police Service Board in November. And if you see how much police officers, well, I guess they were just being moved from one unit to another, but they get paid so much. But just 6 to 32, not to police actual hate crimes, but to crack down on protesters. Officers from other specialized units were drawn into the operation. In late October 2023, the mandate of the unit was also quietly expanded to include the investigation of any occurrence generated as a result of protests and/or demonstrations related to the Middle East conflict. This stood out as a red flag to defense lawyer Martinez. The fact that police expanded its mandates to investigate Middle East protest activity that is not considered hateful or even criminal makes it evident that this movement was targeted because it is connected to Palestine, he said. They likely saw this as a major surveillance opportunity. The Toronto Police refused several requests for an interview and did not respond to questions from the breach. But one officer, who the breach is not naming because they were not authorized to speak to the media, said police had set up a fully integrated intelligence sharing model, getting fed information by RCMP's Integrated National Security Enforcement Team and CSIS, Canada's spy agency. Okay, this is Canadian. The Breach is Canadian. It's a progressive Canadian magazine. When we're talking to other Canadians, do we really still have to mention that CSIS is Canada's spy agency? Like, are there people who are still unaware of that? I just find that a little quirky, that's all, because I would hope by now most Canadians know what CSIS is. Dozens of other officers were soon deployed to fulfill the city's motion's request to create community safety zones, monitoring and protecting Jewish and Muslim places of worship. One gets protected better than the other. Will not allow people of our city to be intimidated, Dimke pledged in front of city councilors at the Police Service Board meeting in November, while explaining the meaning of Project Resolute. Least anyone tried to misconstrue the meaning of the term. Let me be clear. We are resolute in our mission. Ooh, okay, that's some pretty snazzy titling there. Project Resolute, because they're resolute in their mission. See what they did there? They put the adjective in there. The resolute. They're resolute to do something. Yeah. Some really they should write a book to ensure public safety and security while also ensuring that the constitutionality protected rights to free speech and assembly is maintained. But in the months to come, those rights would come under crosshairs of the hate crime unit. Strategic incapacitation of a growing movement. This is a long article, but there's a part of it that I really just kind of maybe want to skip down to. I do encourage everyone to read the whole thing. I can try to remember to post it in the description box, but go and read the whole thing. But I wanted to get down to something important. Well, the whole article is important. Like here, a socialist flag, a university lecture, peaceful protests on a highway overpass, a nonviolent office sit-in, and protests of washable paint splashed on bookstore all have drawn Project Resolute's attention and resources. In many cases, this attention has led to charges of hate-motivated crime or severe restrictions in subsequent protests. I just kind of want to get down to, just remember that here, AWZ, an investment fund led by former conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper, is behind facial recognition tech being used by the Israeli military to conduct mass surveillance of Palestinians in Gaza. I covered that article in a previous live stream. I believe I clipped that. Please go watch it. Horrendous information, but information you need to know. Let's see. So, in February, Project Resolute even made itself felt in a university lecture hall. Palestinian scholar Muhanna I was preparing to deliver a presentation at York University when two Univar police officers entered the room. When challenged, officers said that they had been called to the university to address a possible protest. Why is that needed for the police, a possible freedom of expression and assembly in this country, only under police surveillance. But according to the breach's investigation, this wasn't true. In fact, York administration revealed that a select group of professors that the police were acting on alert from Special Intelligence Unit. The crown jewel of Project Resolute's operation, however, was its sustained focus on a protest against Indigo CEO Heather Reisman. In early November, Indigo's flagship Bloor store in Toronto was plastered with posters and red paint to protest Reisman's involvement in a foundation that provides millions of dollars every year to people who volunteered to join the Israeli military. When this happened, people were accusing the protesters of being anti-Semitic, that they're targeting this Jewish-owned business, and that's the only reason why they were targeting it. And almost no news organization pointed out what you just saw on the screen, that no, it's not because anything to do with Jewish. It has everything to do with, providing millions of dollars every year to people who volunteered to join the Israeli military, the IDF, which is currently doing a genocide. That's where they have the problem, not with Jewish people. For 2 weeks and also posters and red paint, that's the damage that happened, as in there was no damage. It could be washed off in a hard rain. That's what happened. For 2 weeks, nearly 10 officers from the Hate Crimes Unit worked full-time on the case, scouring social media and canvassing neighborhoods where the protesters lived for camera footage. All of that for posters and red paints. No damage to property, because a CEO was upset that her store was targeted. Night raids follow, involving more than 50 officers and K-9 unit. They use tactics usually reserved for violent criminals offenses, arresting people in bed, handcuffing family members of those accused, and leaving doors knocked off their hinges. Toronto police announced that that postering was being treated as hate-motivated offense, and said it was carried out because Reisman is Jewish, even though one of the accused, a professor at York University, is Jewish herself. When protests first started against Reisman's funding of Israeli military volunteers in 2006, the Jewish Women's Committee to End the Occupation were centrally involved. But no, Heather Reisman, she was upset being targeted, so she basically called up the police and be like, hey, can you do something about this? I feel intimidated here with posters and red paint on washable surfaces. At least 4 people who used the paint and posters to protest Reisman last year were suspended from their jobs and lost contracts, and others still were subjected to harassment on social media. As of early April, the cost of Project Resolute reached $12 million. Through additional legal costs associated with operations would likely increase that tally by millions more. That's where the over $1 billion police budget in Toronto is going to harass people who are protesting. Indigo CEO, instant access to police chief. Claims of political pressure have swirled around the Toronto police operation, with experts stressing that police are not the only ones driving its politicized nature. The police are leveraging significant public resources and personnel, said Walby. That's only possible because everyone from Olivia Chow to Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau have been pretty supportive. There is a broader formation of elites whose views are animating what police are doing. In January, the day before Toronto's police chief declared a ban on the Avenue Road protests, he met with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. When Trudeau was pressed by the media about what he had said to Chief Demke, he only said the federal government doesn't have a line of command over the decisions taken by Ontario and Toronto police, unless you employ the Emergencies Act in Ottawa. That happened. That's one of the things that I'm still... Do I agree with Justin Trudeau for deploying the Emergencies Act to the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa? I'm still in an iffy situation with that because I want to say no, but at the same time, something needed to get done to help the people in Ottawa. And the provincial and municipal governments failed them. And so Justin Trudeau was using what avenues he had, even though looks into it later on, said that he was unjustified in using the Emergencies Act. So it's one of those, I don't know, it needed to end. And if the municipality and the provincial government weren't willing to do it, someone had to. Because that was not a protest. It's not just political figures who are suspected of giving prompts to Toronto police. The same day that Indigo was plastered with posters protesting her support for Israel's military, CEO Heather Reisman made a phone call to Toronto's chief of police, according to a police source. To Walby, the example is telling. It shows some elites have instant access to upper echelons of the police, Walby said. The police aren't being directed. The police aren't being directed and they're not taking marching orders, but clearly they're taking cues. They're taking advice that reflects a certain set of political interests. This is access and power that any other Canadians do not have. Yeah, I can't. I can't call the police chief on a whim for whatever reason. I would imagine most people can't do that. Reisman spoke to police again in late November. The next day, Toronto police added a new charge to the accused, criminal harassment, which is behavior that causes a victim to fear for their safety and safety of anyone known to them. It carries the potential sentence of 10 years in jail. So I think those are what I really wanted to get to. So months on, police charges are falling apart in the middle of the proceedings, just as the police delivered a stern rebuke to the Crown prosecutor. So yeah, definitely they were overstepping their bounds with this. I do recommend everyone go and read this full article. It is long, but that's kind of what I wanted to get to, because the person who we started this article with was one of those targeted for the Indigo postering, I believe. So it's just completely outrageous use of authority figures here in Canada. And it's, again, we have police forces that are supposed to keep the public safe, but is that ever the case? Like, they keep property safe, don't you dare hurt anyone else's property. But when the units that are meant to keep communities safe are the ones that end up traumatizing that community, maybe it's time to relook, maybe do some defunding, dismantling, reinventing of how policing works in this country. If that's the case, if the police are causing more trauma than solutions. Just saying.